You already know what it felt like the moment someone else got the opportunity you were certain was yours. The quiet tightening in your chest, the way you smiled anyway. And underneath it, this thought you couldn't shake, they just don't see how good I actually am. That feeling, that specific, burning certainty that you are meant for something more than what's happening right now. Most people would call that ambition. Some would call it drive. But there's a version of that feeling that does something else entirely. It doesn't push you forward. It slowly, quietly, eats everything around you. And you never even notice it happening. In his book, Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday makes a point that genuinely stopped me mid-page. He says the ego doesn't show up looking like arrogance. It doesn't arrive loud or obvious. It arrives as a voice that sounds like belief. It sounds like confidence. It sounds almost exactly like you. Here's where things get interesting. Think about the last time you were in a room where you knew, not hoped, knew, that you were the smartest person there. Maybe you listened less. Maybe you steered conversations back to what you already understood. Maybe you dismissed an idea before it finished being said. Because part of you had already decided the person saying it didn't have much to offer you. You weren't being cruel. You genuinely believed you were being discerning. But that's the thing about ego. It doesn't feel like ego from the inside. It feels like standards. It feels like self-respect. It feels like knowing your worth. And that's precisely why it's so dangerous. Because you can't fight something you can't even recognize as the enemy. The most insidious version of this isn't the person who brags at dinner parties. It's the person who is quietly, privately convinced they are exceptional, and who organizes their entire inner life around protecting that story. They avoid feedback that might complicate the narrative. They choose people who confirm what they already believe about themselves. They mistake talking about their goals for actually doing the work on them. There's a particular kind of grief that comes with this, and almost nobody names it. It's not the grief of obvious failure. It's the grief of watching yourself almost succeed, over and over, because something in you kept getting in the way, and not understanding what it was. You kept the wrong relationships because they made you feel significant. You left the right ones too soon, because they required you to be wrong sometimes. You stopped learning at the exact moment you needed to most, because learning means admitting you don't already know. And every single one of those moments felt, from the inside, like self-respect. The cruel truth is this. The voice that told you that you were destined for greatness was the very thing quietly dismantling every relationship, every opportunity, every version of yourself that could have actually gotten you there. If this just put words to something you've been carrying for years, that's exactly why this channel exists. One book, one honest conversation, every single week. Stay with me. Holiday talks about a distinction that I keep returning to. The difference between being somebody and doing something. Ego is obsessed with the first one. It needs to be recognized, acknowledged, validated. But almost everything worth building in a life comes from being fully absorbed in the second one, in the work itself, with no audience, with no guarantee of credit. Think about the people you genuinely admire, not the ones who perform confidence. The ones who have it so completely they don't need to perform it. They ask questions they don't know the answers to. They listen like something might surprise them. They are, somehow, still curious, still open, still willing to look foolish in the pursuit of something real. That quality, it is not natural. It is not luck. It is earned. It is earned by repeatedly choosing the work over the story about the work. By choosing growth over the image of having already grown. Here's the uncomfortable reframe. What we call confidence, what we praise in ourselves and in others, is sometimes just ego wearing a more socially acceptable outfit. The person who says, "I know what I'm doing," in a voice that closes the room to all other possibilities, isn't confident. They are afraid. Afraid that if they slow down long enough to question themselves, the whole story might unravel. Real confidence is quieter than that. Real confidence can sit in uncertainty. It doesn't need the room to confirm it. So here's the question that actually matters. Not are you working hard enough? Not are you smart enough, talented enough, driven enough, but are you still teachable? When someone criticizes your work, do you get curious or do you get defensive? When a plan fails, do you ask what it's telling you or do you find the closest reason to blame? When you meet someone who knows something you don't, do you lean in, or do you quietly wait for your turn to reestablish where you stand? Those micro moments are everything. They are, collectively, the difference between someone who fulfills their potential and someone who spends their entire life convinced they were about to. Holiday puts it plainly. Ego is the enemy of what you want and of what you have. It is the enemy of mastery, of connection, of the kind of quiet pride that actually lasts. The good news, and there genuinely is good news, is that the ego can be caught, it can be seen, and in the moment you see it clearly, it loses a little of its grip. Not all of it, but some. And maybe that's enough to start. So I want to leave you with a question worth sitting with tonight. If the version of yourself that was always certain, always assured, always ready to be recognized, stepped aside, just for a little while, who would be left standing there? Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday is worth your time. Wherever you are in your journey, it will meet you exactly there.